My next book is ironically getting ready to come out next week, so thanks for the shameless plug there that I just got to give in. But the book comes out. It's my fourth book, but this book is really the culmination of my 30-year plus career in the Mystic Persona system. And the Mystic Persona system, which is something that we've been developing for decades now, is really the ideology of it's not about ignoring. It's not about the what I call the or era, or meaning OR, the word. If you really look at history, I believe we're coming out of a 500-year journey called the or era, where it's either or, it's black or white, tall or short, left, doesn't matter. There is no such thing as or, because if we look at the universe and whatever theology you subscribe to, whatever faith you may or may not have, it doesn't matter. The reality check is there is no or. And we get ourselves into or. We do this in business, we do it in life, we do it personal, we do it to ourselves. We do it in the gym. Well, I'm going to do either this or that. I'm going to do push or pull. No, you're not. You can do both because they work together. So dual path dynamics changed the entire structure and is now, to our knowledge, the first fluid profile persona profiling system in the world. What it says is you are not a static creature. It's impossible. For us to say that I'm either or I'm or, then that further validates one simple point, and I'll stop here. That point validates no matter what faith you come from, what culture you were born into, what your mother or father influences, your education, all that's irrelevant, because in order to come to that conclusion, you must accept that, hey, the only creature in the known universe that we all agree on is a godlike creature that can separate and ignore itself. You don't see lions going, well, today I'm identifying as a giraffe and I just don't want to hang out with the pride. I'm going to go over there and, eat some leaves. You don't see that anywhere in nature. We are the only creature on the planet that can literally suppress ourselves. Now we're into the shadow world or the deep unconscious, and ignore parts of it, act like it didn't happen, and lie to ourselves and convince ourselves through a process called self-hypnosis, a little topic I know a little bit about, and put ourselves in a mental state of illusion, and then have the gall to go, yeah, but the world's an illusion. I'm real.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, oh, okay, we know where Canada is, in the British Columbia on the West Coast, right? Right. And there is that big city called Vancouver. Yes, we are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers. And that puts us exactly in the center of British Columbia. North, south, east, west, big place. And then it is nature's paradise. We have a beautiful province here, especially in northern British Columbia, and the south, and the islands. And so there's lots of forest, and within 50 miles of Prince George, we have probably well in excess of 100 lakes. We have all kinds of friends around here. Black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, foxes, wolves, you name it, we have them all here. I call it paradise. Today we have a very, very interesting guest. His name is Dr. Travis Fox. And Travis Fox, known as the Mindscape Architect, is the executive chair of Build Your Fortress and the founder and board member of the Ultimate Business Quest, an Emmy Award winner, and holds a doctorate in both psychology and clinical I have difficulty with that one. Hypnotherapy. He's going to tell us all about that, obviously. And so the other part about Travis and his amazing background, he is an actor, a producer, a keynote presenter, and with an amazing record, and an amazing, amazing story. That then being said, Travis, tell us about your background and how did you kind of start from there on in, took your turn in education and your career, and you're not a young fella anymore, so that puts me at, I'm 84 years young, and just had my birthday about 3 weeks ago or so. And, and so lots of history, lots of experience. I'm also an author. I do a lot of public speaking, and obviously I'm very active in podcasting. and business. So that then being said, Travis, share with us some of your background.
Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. Thank you. And it's funny. Well, every time I do a show and I hear someone read, my past and resume, I always chuckle and go, "Are they talking about me?"
Yeah.
Because I think we all are guilty of this. And for those of you who are like me in the different persona models, uh, what I hear on my resume and what I think I've actually accomplished in my head are still an ocean apart at the ripe age of 54. Congratulations on your birthday, by the way. That's awesome. That is inspiring um, from one OG to another, but you are the senior in the room, sir. So my hat's tipped to you, and it's inspiring. And I love the title of your book behind you. I think that's fantastic. And by the way, nice guns. Well done. I think that's fantastic.
That's a picture of me.
Yeah,
I'm the oldest
I get it.
competitive bodybuilder in North America.
Okay, well, you and my wife will get along fine. She's an NPC competitor as well and winner, and we have actually taken almost a year off now because, as you undoubtedly know, we did 2 years straight of comps. And it was by the second year, your body's like, okay, I need just a wee bit of a break. This meal prep thing and staying at 4% body fat and 5% body fat is phenomenal. And you feel amazing. And you look fantastic, by the way, sir.
Well,
and I
thank
know
you.
the discipline that takes it. I super respect anybody who's in that space. When I was young and judgmental and thought I knew something, I used to go, they're just a bunch of gym rats that hang out and do nothing. I have to tell you, I didn't start bodybuilding until I was 50 years old, which was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd been in the gym, because I've been a professional athlete and an athlete since I was 4 years old, and then turned pro when I was 19. We'll get into that second to your original question.
Sure.
But I will tell you, all of you out there, take it from a guy who's comes from the space of, it's just the gym. I've already been in great shape. I can kind of stay at my 12% to 14% body fat if I just kind of just do what I'm doing. There's a difference between 12%, 8%, and 6%. It's cataclysmic, and it is shifting in multiple aspects. One, your energy level is insane. I mean, here's a perfect example. You're 84 and you're Sprite. I'm like, crap, I feel like I'm lazy compared to listening to you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got way to go. But secondly, I learned more, and I chose a sport that was difficult and disciplined anyways, which was golf. I've been in golf now for almost 50 years, and at the top of the game, right? It's a very disciplined sport. However, I will say to you, I've learned more discipline. I've also been to the deepest parts of my shadow. I've seen the excuses, the nonsense, the personas that run around in our head to tell us not to do something. And I learned it all in the gym. And so I respect that you're the bodybuilder. I think that's fantastic. I respect bodybuilders, both male and female, because it's a discipline. It is an absolute discipline when the rest of the world is telling you, you look great. Don't worry about it. You only need to go to the gym 3 days a week. No, you need to be there 7, kids. You gotta commit. And it really challenges, I think, and it's one of the most powerful mental tools that I've actually incorporated with all my private clients and my corporate clients. I'm not asking you to go become a professional bodybuilder, but I am asking you to commit to 4 to 5 times a week. Because in that hour, I'm going to learn more about where your mental persona excuse system is, where the shadows that you hide about yourself. I'm going to learn that in an hour watching you work out. Not from a judgmental point of view, but how do we self-sabotage? How do we quit? Because as you undoubtedly know, the weight doesn't move itself. I don't care who your trainer is, or your coach is, your posing coach, your nutritionist. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're either pulling the weight or you're not. And you know it. And we are so guilty of this. And I watched myself in the gym, and I'm sure you've experienced this. You're going, okay, I'm going to do 5 sets. Around the 3rd set, this thing starts kicking in. Oh, well, we only need to do 3 sets. I feel good. I got a pump. And I'm like, yeah, but the pump is not what we're doing here. So it's a really cool experience. So I applaud you. I did not know that when you invited me on the show. So that was a good bonus feature. And with that being said, here's a quick snapshot of me. I grew up outside the United States. My mother was a model and an actress, so I spent the first 4.5 years of my life in Japan. I came back for a brief stint to the United States. I am a United States citizen, was born here. And my father put a golf club in my hand in Florida, and we went off to Europe for another 3.5 years. And I was still developing my golf game. Europe is a great place to do it. Obviously, it's the home of golf, going all the way back. So I got a great experience of the world and culture. And people really became the heart of who I am and what I love to do. I'm influenced by 2 major people, and those are P.T. Barnum, yes, of Barnum and Bailey Circus. Definitely been an influence on my life, because one of the things that I was always amazed by his legacy was, 1, he left the legacy when there wasn't an internet, and 2, he brought everybody into this big thing called a tent, and we all played this beautiful show together. So it wasn't just us watching the performers. The audience is equally as much, and it influenced my show business career and also my business career. But then the other one is Dr. Dennis Waitley. And I had the beautiful, fast forward 40 years later, and my last filmed, which is in 2020, which was the sequel to The Secret called Beyond the Secret. It's been out now for several years, but Doc was in it. I was obviously in as one of the co-producers as well. And to be able to talk to your hero is an incredible thing. And he is such a humble man. He's like, I'm not a hero, and I'm like, well, sir, you're the reason I'm in this, because it influenced and impacted me such a way that it altered the course of my life. And by the time I was 19, headed off to college, I played my first year and really went from here's my career path lined out to head case in 3 seconds flat. And part of what happened, and this is go to our era, and now into this era is even more interesting. I'm watching it from a different persona perspective. Is we didn't have a lot of mental training back then. Sports psych didn't exist. It was kind of like you just grin and bear it, dude. Either you have it or you don't. And I went on this journey of, well, wait a minute. How did I just spend the last 15 years of my life mastering this game, golf? And I use the term mastering loosely because there's never such a thing. Even the great Tiger Woods couldn't pull it off, and he's fantastic. He's a demigod. And I went on a search, and it's led me to your doorstep now, some 34 years later in my career. And that's how I ended up arriving as Dr. Fox. I changed my major from real estate, went into psychology, and said, I'm the type of guy, and maybe some of your people in the audience are as well, or guy or gal, doesn't matter. I need to know how it works, not from a control perspective, but I need to understand the architecture of something, because the left side of my brain wants to go, oh, okay, I'm going to do 14 sets. I'm going to watch all the things in my head. I'm going to journalize what I'm doing. I'm going to give myself that discipline. And then once I see the discipline, it always engaged the other side of my brain. My right side would come in and go, well, how can I make this fun? First, P.T. Barnum influence. 2, how can I see the psychology of where I'm sabotaging myself? And that's what really became the impetus of my work. My dissertation was based on that, and golf, which later became the first psychological infomercial in the world, back in the Golf Channel days and the XM radio days on tour. And I did 10 years on tour, coached for 10 years, and was on air talent. And Beat the Bogeyman took me around the world. And Beat the Bogeyman was this metaphoric structure that we had done, built off a clinical structure that says, how do we beat these thoughts in our head? And that ultimately led to where we sit here today. My next book is ironically getting ready to come out next week. So thanks for the shameless plug there that I just got to give in. But the book comes out. It's my 4th book, but this book is really the culmination of my 30-year plus career in the Mystic Persona system. And the Mystic Persona system, which is something that we've been developing for decades now, is really the ideology of, it's not about ignoring. It's not about what I call the or era, or meaning OR, the word. If you really look at history, I believe we're coming out of a 500-year journey called the or era, where it's either or, it's black or white, tall or short, left, doesn't matter. There is no such thing as or, because if we look at the universe and whatever theology you subscribe to, whatever faith you may or may not have, it doesn't matter. The reality check is there is no or. And we get ourselves into or. We do this in business, we do it in life, we do it personal, we do it to ourselves. We do it in the gym. Well, I'm going to do either this or that. I'm going to do push or pull. No, you're not. You can do both, because they work together. So dual path dynamics changed the entire structure, and is now, to our knowledge, the first fluid profile persona profiling system in the world. What it says is, you are not a static creature. It's impossible for us to say that I'm either or I'm or. Then that further validates one simple point, and I'll stop here. That point validates no matter what faith you come from, what culture you were born into, what your mother or father influences, your education, all that's irrelevant, because in order to come to that conclusion, you must accept that, hey, the only creature in the known universe that we all agree on is a godlike creature that can separate and ignore itself. You don't see lions going, well, today I'm identifying as a giraffe, and I just don't want to hang out with the pride. I'm going to go over there and, eat some leaves. You don't see that anywhere in nature. We are the only creature on the planet that can literally suppress ourselves. Now we're into the shadow world, or the deep unconscious, and ignore parts of it, act like it didn't happen, and lie to ourselves and convince ourselves through a process called self-hypnosis, a little topic I know a little bit about, and put ourselves in a mental state of illusion, and then have the gall to go, yeah, but the world's an illusion. I'm real. I'll leave it at there. That's how I arrive at your doorstep.
Excellent. Interesting, Travis. 2 questions.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hypnotherapy and Clinical
Hypnotherapy. Hypno.
hypnotherapy. What is
Yeah.
it? What does it mean?
Yeah, it's and forgive me, and I mean this with respect. It's pronounced as in hypnosis,
Okay.
hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy is the clinical study of what are we doing under a hypnotic state or an internal state. In the simplest of languages, it's a brainwave. Everyone thinks it, and I did too when I was young, that anything to do with hypnosis or hypnotherapy or a hypnotic state must be look deep into my eyes and look at my watch and that's all just show business. And yeah, I know I've been in a little bit of that too as well because it makes it fun. The reality check: hypnosis is a natural state. It's a brainwave called your theta wave. You pass through it every day, twice a day of your life. So do I. Every human being listening to your show does the same thing. The difference is hypnotherapy says, hey, how about we hold ourselves in this theta state? Because now we have, again, the either or has been eliminated because we are both consciously aware. In fact, you're more aware in that brainwave than you are right now. You and I are talking, both of us. And you're not asleep as in delta wave, like REM nighttime sleep. You're in both states, which now allows us to access both conscious awareness, but also subconscious awareness simultaneously, because we need to see both. The things that stop, I find, most of us, and again, I use the gym as an example, something you and I can immediately relate on. The only person that knows if you're half-assing it in the gym is you. That's it. Because I can put on a show going, oh, I'm making the weights. Look at this. Great. I'm doing 15 sets, bro. Yeah, okay. I'm doing my selfie shot. We know. So that's the first place I invite people. Go to the gym and just watch your thought process and you will see all of the personas. But here's the challenge we've always run into. How do I identify what voice in my head is talking? Some voices have a male tone or a more masculine sounding sound. Some have female. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, your gender, or how you identify. It's just how they code in your head. But where are they coming from? Because I would never think those thoughts. I would never self-sabotage myself. I would never half-ass anything. I mean, I'm a go-getter. I'm a gladiator. I'm a badass. I'm like, yeah, you are, but you're also not simultaneously. And it is the process of integration. And people have taken the word integration pretty much since Carl Jung kind of brought it to the forefront, going back, into the mid-19th century. That integration means I absorb it and I conquer it. How do you conquer yourself? Makes no sense. That's like literally saying, I'm better than me. Well, who's the I in that sentence talking? Integration is a philosophy that says, hey, kids, how about this? You are like a diamond. You are multifaceted. So just like a diamond, depending on how the light is hitting you or the absence of light will determine how the refraction of that light comes through that diamond. You and I are the same. Yeah, the average human being has 102 personas running around in their head. Now, does that mean you're an imposter? Yeah. But it also means that's who you are, because we all wear personas. And the first one, my favorite persona to deal with is when I first meet people and I say, okay, what's your favorite persona? Give me one. Just throw it out what you think is, based on what you know or what you don't know. And the first response I always get is, I don't wear any personas. I'm authentic. That's the first persona I deal with right there. I go, right. Because we all wear personas. And the first persona that says that we don't wear them is the first one you need to look at, because then we get into what are we really afraid of? And we all are afraid. We work on what's called thematics or themes. And in my humble opinion, and what's really been the body of my work and what the next mystic persona is about is get rid of the word or. The word or is dangerous. And I'm not saying that it doesn't apply in every aspect or in certain aspects of life. Yes. I mean, do I jump off the cliff or not? Yeah. Okay. That or might be a little more difficult. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about to say I'm either left brain or I'm right brain, or what history has really kind of, at least the prior part, has put us into what's called a quadratic model. It looks like a plus sign and you're in one of these four boxes. And then it says, that's who you are. Really? That's funny, because who I was at 15 and 25 and 35 and 45 and 55 is different. So therefore, something is transforming in me. The real integrational invitation to ourselves is, am I aware of it, or am I just running around on autopilot, commonly called auto or self-hypnosis? And I love when people go, well, Travis, I can't be hypnotized. I'm like, you're damn right you can't. You know why? Because you've done such a great job. You've been in a hypnotic state so damn long, you can't tell the forest from the trees. And I totally understand that. It's normal. The difference is, are you aware of it? But that normal is based on a different ideology of who you think you are, who you've been told to be, or who you really are. And the travesty of that journey is that often, and I'm sure you've seen this in your journey, and those of you listening, look around. We all know someone who we go, man, they've had great potential. They're fantastic, but they just can't get out of their own damn way. Are we talking about them or are we talking about ourselves? Because we're all challenged with that same persona. And then when you look at it, now what if you made it a game? What if you made it fun? And I don't mean like in a space of, oh my God, hey, guess what? I've had trauma and I just got to deal with it. This is great. I mean, although that's one way to do it, it's more of awareness. Once I understand what the persona is, how it talks, and we do that, we show you these are the voices that they'll say. These are sentences that you'll generally hear. It may not be exact, but it'll be in that genre. It also shows you where it lands. Because with 102 personas, you're fluid and a blueprint because it's a living system. As opposed to, this is the stamp of who you are. This is who you're going to be for the rest of your life, because that's what some test told you when you were 15 in school. And then the challenge is we try to fit into that box knowing something doesn't quite feel right. I just can't quite get the potential there. I can't get in my own way. It's like a square peg into a round hole. And we're constantly in this psychological battle that manifests itself often as, not complacency. I don't ever feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'm ever good enough. I never quite get there. I just don't get that. And guys, we're the worst because we always have to put on the persona of, no, I'm good. I'm an alpha male, bro. Okay, whatever. Shut up. Right? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest with ourselves. And the great Alan Watts said it best, we're all marching straight towards death and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. And we're doing everything we can. And our personas are a fantastic participant in this, to hypnotize ourselves and distract ourselves from the thing that scares us to death, puns intended, which really begets the question of, if that's true, what personas, and it's plural, are keeping you from living out loud, just living your ass off? So here's the first question I would invite your audience to look at. And then I'll stop there, sir. Thank you for listening. If you only had 30 days left to live and you knew it, you knew that you were leaving this planet, that's it. You have 30 days left to live. Would you be doing anything you're doing in your life right now? And where your answer is no, and you seek to ignore it, that's the first place you'll look. Because that's the first place we get to be honest with ourselves, because we generally suck at being honest with ourselves. And yet we have the gall to say to people, I want an authentic relationship. I want to be open kimono. Okay, great. We'll start here. And when we do that, we know that facing the shadow is the scariest thing we'll ever do. But we've also done a really great job of creating on a global social scale that shadow means evil, that shadow means something's lurking in the dark. Well, yeah, it's in the dark. It's because you put it there, because you didn't want to deal with the truth or look at it or afraid of it. And it's okay. Those are scary things. I get it. Me too. Just because I know it doesn't mean I'm immune to it. What I do is we make it fun for people to experience it and go, oh, I got it. Man, that's my tyrant regent. That's my havoc bringer. Oh, okay, that's my omniseer. That's my entertainer. Okay, that's my sage. And I start to understand now when we're talking to each other, I can come in and say, hey, Mr. Brink, here's the deal, sir. My enchanter gave me a lot of BS that, I needed to only be in the gym a half hour today. So I'm sorry I'm a half hour late, but that was what was going on. It's a really cool way of saying, I gave myself a bunch of BS excuses this morning, Mr. Brink, and I just want you to know that I know it. And I call that my enchanter because it hypnotized me to believe some BS that I know is not true, but I chose to buy it anyways. Now we're starting to have authenticity, but I'm also owning that part of myself, integrating it back in. I'm not trying to fix it because there's nothing to fix. That's the biggest illusion, is that you're broken. Something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. It's quite the opposite. You've been told that, hey, though you only got to think positive. That's impossible. If you only thought positive, you'd walk into crap and get snapped when you're a kid. Why? Because you don't have a sense of fear. The limbic system is designed for that, but going all the way back to when we were Neanderthalic. But when we look at this, we start to go, well, wait a minute. That has become a pervasive, chronic, and systemic mindset that is lurking in the shadows. That you're correct, but it's not evil. It is a trauma or a fear or an unknown or a control mech. All of those things are thematics. And once you understand your thematics, well, now you can start architecting the life that you want. And yes, it is architecture, meaning that it has a wire frame, but you get to fill in the blanks. It's your adventure. It's your story. The difference is, and the question I really ask people is, it's not whether you're ready. It's, are you ready to accept that you're everything? That challenges most people's mindsets because they go, well, I'm not everything. I'm not successful. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm like, no, you are. You just haven't activated that part of yourself yet. And what happens if you do? And that's where we start.
I love it, Travis.
Thank you.
I said there is 2 questions initially. There will be a lot more. The second question is an observation that I make about you. You
Okay.
are a very effective communicator. You
Well,
have
thank you.
confidence. And then the question is, did you always have that? Because
Mm,
I have written 4 or 5 books. The fifth book,
mm,
and I'm going to send you copies of these books. I'm going to sign them
thank you.
for you. And I want to see
Thank you.
your books because we're going to show them to the public. But I
Sure.
just want to, and my question is, the fifth book that I do is on communications and the
Mm,
importance of it, because you
mm,
cannot be successful, in my mind, unless successful meaning not just average,
mhm,
but above average, unless you're an effective communicator, and that
mm.
you that also means becoming a good listener and a good speaker. Did you acquire these skills, or did you
Mm.
always have that?
Great question. Thank you for the compliments, by the way, and thank you for the books. I humbly accept. I love that. I'm still a fan to this day because I know what it takes to write a book too. Again, back to discipline. So the fact that you're on that many, amen, sir. Great inspiration. That's two. The answer to your question is both. I've always been intuitive. I naturally had it as a young man, and for a long time I struggled with because I could walk into a room and I could literally just see it, and then I ignored it for a while. I actually suppressed it. And there's a lot of people who have other gifts, whether they're empathic or they're intuitive or they're healers of some sort, who do the same thing because of the ridicule as a child. I didn't get a ton of ridicule about it. Luckily, I had an offset because my mother's background of entertainment, it put me in an entertainment world. So being in front of people was normal. In fact, I will tell you point blank, and all of your listeners, I'm still to this day at 54 more uncomfortable having this conversation as a one-to-one de facto than I am in front of 10,000 people. Put me in front of 10,000 people, which I've been there more times than I can count. I'm comfortable. In fact, it's home to me, and it feeds a soul mechanism for me on many levels. But I also enjoy watching the entire. There's something to me that is magical and quasi drug addictive of watching a group of people who seem like strangers finally go, there's nothing strange about us. I'm like, no, not at all. In fact, if you want to put it simple, we're the only people in the whole neighborhood. We're the only ones on, planet Earth. All the other planets have been abandoned. So it's us, kids. So maybe we can move out of this, or either it's, either or, win or lose. Or how about we just move into what's called competitive collaboration? I think that's there we're finally moving into, and the timing is right, where I'm not competing against you and you're not competing against me. It's very much like the gym. It's not competition against you. It's a competition of how many weights am I willing to push to get this body to be disciplined to what I see in my head, and then owning the fact, if it's not what I see, where am I in my own way, or am I not committed to it? Either one is fine, and you're both there. The question is, which one are you leaning towards? Because that's where the OR model comes in, as opposed to integrating them both and moving and using the energy of both of those things to create the wholeness that you are. I then, when I went into school and sat under my mentor and master for 15 years, I got better at it. Um, I was always a great communicator, but I was a little soft on the listening. But I became an incredible listener, and he taught me how to be present, because 90%, as you know, communication is not verbal. It's what's going on. And then he also helped me get comfortable with Travis, because I would look at people and I would sit and I would, especially with my corporate clients to this day, I'll sit in a call just like this and they're talking, and all of a sudden I'm writing all my notes, and I'll come up and I'll go, here's all the things that I see. And they'll go, I didn't say any of that. How'd you know that? And I'm like, well, part of it is I intuitively can sense it, part of that architecture. But two, I'm trained to see what you're not saying and who's talking, even though your mouth is saying one thing, that's not what's going on. I don't mean just body language, and I don't mean idiomotor responses. They're part of it, but it's also to the deeper architecture of ourselves, meaning the four-level structure, which is conscious, subconscious, and then called emotional, traumatic, and then ultimately the thematic, the theme that we're talking about. Because once we understand our theme, man, it's amazing how fast our mind and body will it'll rewire itself. It is one of the most amazing experiences. People go AI, and now we've got the quantum chip, and I'm like, guys, we are the quantum chip. What the hell are you talking about? We're it, right? Now you could sit there and argue about speed, but let's be honest, our conscious mind is not the argument we can have a comparative model to. The unconscious does billions and billions of things a day that you have not a damn clue what's going on. Even now, all of us in this show right now, in this beautiful tent of this show, who's running your heartbeat, your digestive system, your parasympathetic system, all that's on autopilot. And thank God it is, because you imagine if you had to just control your heartbeat, hell, we'd never get out of bed. So it's a beautiful marriage. It's not an either or. It is a perfect example of the blending. But also, too, we get into the space of forgetting. We are fantastic at forgetting and phenomenal at it, right? We forget. It is the integration of those two working simultaneously that makes the human body fire and work and gives us this beautiful experience called life. Therefore, based on that, or the Taoist as the primary philosophy, what stops us from integrating all the other parts of ourselves? Because there's Travis the father, there's Travis the son, there's Travis the CEO, there's Travis the doctor, there's Travis the knucklehead, there's Travis the guy in the gym, there's Travis the speaker, and they all have different values. And it doesn't mean you're acting. This is the one thing I think is a dangerous thing for people is we get into this, well, I'm an imposter. We all are. Anybody walking around saying that you know it, that's the first person we got to talk to, because what do we really know? And you're my senior, sir, so I'd ask you the same question. What do you really know? I can tell you when I turned 50, I walked into our board and I said, guys, it's official. I can tell you after 50 years of my brilliance, and I use that term with deep sarcasm, my satirist loves to show up and give deep sarcasm for fun as a way to look at it, was, hey, I know two things for sure. I know Jack and I know crap. Those are the two things I know. Everything else is a working theory, but that's exactly where we split ourselves into, well, I know this. No, you don't. Things are changing so fast now, and they have been since the dawn of humanity. To say you know something is really you sticking in the ground a stake as an anchor point, as an illusion of safety. I can rest, I know this. Do you? Really? Well, what happens if an asteroid comes here? What do you know now? You know, not a damn thing. But it robs us of that beautiful innate thematic that you came to this planet with and you will leave this planet with, and that is called curiosity. Curiosity. As a kid, you were curious about everything. And if you want to see curiosity, go see a puppy or a new kitten. Watch how they everything. I mean, they want to smell everything, they want to get in everything. They want to do. Where did that go in you? Where did you quit on yourself and exchange your dreaming and your sense of adventure and your sense of curiosity for this thing called hope? Now, I'm not saying hope is bad, but hope implies doubt. Because what do? We hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. So if we're already doing that, we've already got the either or, and we're leaning towards planning for the worst. Or, parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Well, it is the dual path dynamics of parabellum, but it also sets us up for what's really the undercurrent thematic. In that case, we're looking for the bottom to fall out.
So I'm a little bit. I love communications, but it took me time to get there. And in order to put it into perspective, I was already indicated. I was born in 1940 in northeastern Holland, and it was my parents were married in 1938, and they were in love. And they lived in a beautiful part of Holland. Holland is a very beautiful place. I'm sure you have been there. And so and so they had everything. And fairly quickly they had a boy and a girl. And then what happened is a dictator called Adolf Hitler decided in 1938-39 to take a piece of Poland and push further east. And then what happened to my family, my mom and dad, my dad was drafted into the Dutch army on April of 1940. And for 5 years, they would not know if he died or lived, because the last time they saw him was in Rotterdam when the German Hitler decided that they didn't capitulate quick enough for him, and they bombed downtown Rotterdam, and thousands of people died. For me, I was born November the 1st, 1940, and then the first thing that I remember is when I was about 3.5 years old, hundreds of planes overhead when the Allied forces had decided to bomb the infrastructure of the German army, in particular into the northwest, close to the North Sea, Wilhelmshaven, Bremen, Hamburg, and all those places. And hundreds of planes in the air. A sound that I still even now remember. I will likely never hear again. I hope not, anyway. And my mom would take us outside on the flat roof behind our house, and in the distance we could see the cities burning, the sky be red, And the reason she took us outside is she felt safer outside than inside. And then the next thing that I remember is 1944, and it was then all the food was cut off in Holland. And again, a lot of kids died, a lot of older, vulnerable people died. And I remember with us, my brother, my sister, myself, every morning we would go into the railroad yards with gunny sacks and pick up anything edible and burnable. And so the reason that we did as kids, because they wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, but we'd be back the following day. And then the winter of 1944-45 was the coldest on record in Holland. And so all we had is the little room in our house that we kept hot with one little stove, and we sit close to it to stay warm, freeze in the back, burn in the front. And I still can feel that, the feeling of hunger and cold. And so, and then the next thing that happened, Travis, that changed my life is when the Americans and the Canadians and other countries together decided to liberate and help Europe landed in Normandy in the summer of 1944. They pushed through Normandy, and the Canadians pushed through France, Belgium, the west coast of Holland, and pushed the Germans out through the northeastern part of Holland where we lived and back into Germany. And things were pretty rough then. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. And so that kind of stayed with me. And then we were liberated, in our case, by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. And I knew from that point forward, when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes. I was going to go when I was 17, and my parents wouldn't let me then. And so I was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years, and then I left for Canada when I was 24. Now, the other part about me that was something that not only the dream to go to Canada is academically I was not a success story. I still, even still today, are affected by PTSD and the inner child. In fact, I had counseling for the inner child in my 50s, very emotional. But academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And so people said then the last time that I failed, so what are we going to do with this guy? My parents loved me and they loved the kids. And they said, other people said, send her to the school of the mentally challenged kids. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. So they then, at 12 and a half years old, they said, my dad was in lumber and my grandfather was a master carpenter. Let's make him a furniture maker. And so at 12 and a half years old, I worked in a furniture factory. And I worked there until I was 17, 18. And then I went into the Dutch Air Force. After I came out of there, I worked in lumber. And then I went to Canada. But, you know, I knew deep down that I was just as smart as all the other ones. And kids can be hard on each other. All the kids that were in school with me that went on to college and university, they kind of looked down on me, now being in Covernors, being a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down on.
Sure.
And so, then I wanted to start with nothing. And so to go to Canada to build a lumber mill and start with nothing. I had 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and very little money. And I landed in Montreal and took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. Landed in Vancouver, went to the immigration office, and I couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, and didn't have a job. Fortunately, there was a German fellow. I could speak some German. And I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. 500 miles north. That's where all the lumber manufacturers, that's where the opportunities are. So 60 years later, that's where I still am. I can still see where the Greyhound station used to be here. And so I had my suitcase, I had 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I had lots of attitude is that I, even under the worst of circumstances, even in my own lonely little world, although everybody said, oh, he doesn't have brains and he doesn't amount to anything, I always believed in me still, and attitude. And has always been critically important to me. I avoid the negative. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. And work ethic. I work harder even today than anybody else. And yes, I did get my mill and 10 other companies, but it's not about that. So even now, I still get up at 5:30 in the morning at 84. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so, but even then, Travis, I was not a good communicator, and I had lacked self-confidence. Now, part of it was also likely is that I grew up in northeastern Holland in a province called Groningen, and they speak a dialect. And High Dutch is different than the dialect. And so if I try to speak High Dutch, they can tell that, oh, he's a farmer, he comes from that part. You know, so so I had to, when I went into the Air Force, I had to acquire to speak High Dutch. And so I always did that with some kind of an accent. It was not easy. And I barely got that part under control. Then I go to Canada. Now I have to learn to speak English. And so, and so, although I was already quite successful, you know, initially starting from as a cleanup man from nothing, then a supervisor of a mill, then a superintendent of a mill, and within 2 years I already was part owner of a little sawmill, and then 10 years later I started a company called Brink Forest Products, now the Brink group of companies with 10 other companies, but it's not about that kind of stuff. But so that already was, but I still, even then, I was already 50 years old, successful, but if I was interacting with others, I could do that in my company, but I was not very good at it doing it outside of my company. Until somebody said to me, an ex-sister-in-law actually, she said, I want you to go with me to Toastmasters. I said, what is Toastmasters all about? She said, it's about communication skills. I said, are they going to ask me any questions? She said, no, you just sit there and watch them. So I did that. And then halfway through the meeting, somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about you. I said, oh, I'll never go back here. But I did. I stayed there for 10 years, became a distinguished Toastmaster. And for all the people watching us from around the world, there's probably 500,000 people as we speak in North America, if not more than that are part of little Toastmaster clubs. There's about 3 or 4 in this town. There's probably in LA or wherever you are. And there's all kinds of them. It's about not communication skills, or Toastmasters is not about speaking only, but it's about first and foremost listening. And then secondary, it is being able to speak on your feet in a coordinated manner, and then obviously develop presentations and doing those kind of things. So that changed my life. And then the other part that changed my life is, now I already was successful in business, is even then still there was things about me I thought, I'm different than anybody else. Why is that? What is it that makes me different? And I went into a bookstore here in Prince George, January 1997. I had already been here for 32 years. I picked up a book. This is the book. I'm going to show it to you that I picked up. This book. I don't know why I picked it up. The title of the book was Driven to Distraction by Dr. Hollowell. Dr. Hollowell, well known, wrote this book in 1993. He has written 18 books, 5 on distraction. And so he is ADHD and has dyslexia. And I said, oh my God,
Wow.
that's me. And so I wrote in the book here, this book, January 1997, in Dutch, because I was ashamed of it, because it implied a mental challenge. Now I finally know who I am. And so
Mm.
that's what I did. And that part, in combination with the others, changed my life. But by then, it took me another 5 years before I went to my doc that had delivered our two daughters, was a personal friend. And he said to me, hey, John, why are you here? I said, I think I got ADHD. And we checked it out, and yes, I do. So at that point, then, I already was 62 years old. And
Wow.
then from there on in, it changed my life. In terms of me, I became much more active in terms of presentations. I went beyond that. I am an in-demand presenter. and then I started writing books. And the first one, people had said to me, John, you have such an interesting life. Why don't you write a book? As you already indicated,
Right.
writing books is
Yeah,
not
right.
easy. So I thought about it. So I wrote this book here, Against All Odds. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to sign it for you. It took
Thank
me
you.
80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And so, and then the
So
second one that I did, ADHD to me, the more I found out about it, it's a superpower. And
Yes.
and so I speak about it, but not exclusively. But I do usually include it in presentations that I do. And I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked, and so that was an important one for me. And then the other one that I did is Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. Is that, and you can relate. I watched the U.S. channel at one point. And so they said, and I'm sure it's the same in Canada, is that 75% of the people that work don't like their jobs. And 70% of that 75 are looking for another job. And then at the same time, I do a lot of presenting to younger people in high schools, colleges, or universities. And I ask them a lot of times during my presentations at an appropriate time, respectfully, what are you going to do after you finish your schooling? And a lot of them say, no, I don't know. And I say, well, it's important, so to think about it respectfully is that, example, if you want to be a truck driver, talk to a truck driver, see what is involved. What does he do? Why does he do? Should you own the truck? Should you not own the truck? Or you want to be a builder or a carpenter? Talk to somebody that does that. What are they doing? How did they go about it? Or a doc, or a lawyer, or the other things, or for that matter, an entrepreneur. And so because most of your life you're going to be working, and if you don't like what you're doing, you take it home with you, and your whole environment will be adversely affected because of the way you feel. That's why I wrote this book, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And since I left school at 12 and a half years old, became a laborer, and worked for 70 years, the question would be a fair one, and saying, are you living the dream, Jan, today? I sure am, even 70 years later. And then the other book that I did is this one here. And I love this one when you picked it up, because the point of this book is not look at John, how well he looks, and blah, blah, blah. And he's no, I need something. What happened to me is that my wife is a vegetarian, and so I didn't always listen as well to her as I could have and should have. And until something happened to me in 2008. I got a case of diverticulitis and ruptured my colon, and it nearly killed me. After they operated it, took 20 centimeters out of my colon, the doc said, you came this close. And so then I knew that I had to become more proactive in my diet and going to the gym. Before that, I was just like everybody else. At the end of the year, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to buy a membership to the gym. And so
Right.
then 2 weeks later, I can have 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym. And so I got a trainer 16 years ago and started
Yeah.
training in earnest.
Yep.
And then after doing that for about 6 years, somebody said, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah." I said, "Well, why
Right.
not?" So I competed here bodybuilding and physique. Northern BC came in second bodybuilder,
Yep.
third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials. Came in the same, qualified me for the nationals in the Arnolds. And then
Wow.
COVID came. And
Yeah.
now again at nearly 85 or 84,
Mm.
but in 85 I want to again compete in the Arnolds. And what is this book all about? It's not about anything. Age is just a number. It is quality of life that counts more than anything. And so I
Believe.
love going to the gym as you do, and the rewards. Once you're in the habit of doing that, then you becomes part of your life. The same with
Right.
healthy diet. And
Mhm.
then I've been at venues, and you have been, where there are hundreds of male and female people doing competing, and every single one of them belongs there because it takes that commitment that I can
Right.
do and I will do commitment. And
Right.
so that's why I wrote the book.
Brilliant.
It's about quality of life. And the other one on communication skills, and that's why I made the comment about you. You are a unique presenter. You have the record to support that. But I believe I fall now in that category as well. But it took me time as to say, who am I? And it took me a
Mm.
long time to answer that question. The other one that I have, if I interact and make presentations to younger people, then a lot of times people feel, well, this is not right, that's not right about me, this is not where this. I always say there is only one of you on this earth. There is no one else other than you, and you are special. Not more special than, but you are special. Accept
Yeah.
who you are, and then everything is possible. I can, to me, is a critical approach to life.
John, that's an amazing story. First of all, I can tell, this is not a big stretch. This is not Dr. Fox. It's just duh. It's clearly obvious. Incredibly passionate human being. Your emotional depth is strong. You have a deep, deep pool of emotions, and I suspect that your emotions drive you far more than you've let on in this conversation. I know that spiritual is an incredible part of you because you just validated everything that basically you validated all of my work. So thank you for that. You just showed you transformed yourself. You are a transformative creature, being, entity, spirit. Pick your word. I don't care. Whatever suits your fancy. But you just validated it. Living proof. Don't take my word for it, people. All of you listening to John, just look at John. He just validated everything I'm talking about. He's integrated that which was told as a weakness, ADHD. I happen to believe it. I have it too, by the way. And here's the funny thing. If you go to the APA, the American Psychological Association, and you take their online ADHD test, it's about 10 questions, unless they've updated it recently, I'm not aware of. Almost all of us qualify. The difference is we've been told that, well, no, you're ADHD. I'm like, no, you're not. You're a nonlinear thinker, and it's part of what the work that we do is I also teach what's called circular thinking. It's a superpower because the reason why I'm a better producer than I was a director is because as a producer, I have 9 things going on at the exact same time, and it's comfortable. And I don't mean comfortable as in, oh, this is normal, like it's okay. It's no, this is the alignment of Travis naturally to go, okay, I'm talking to the grips. I'm talking to my lighting guys. I'm talking to my AD. I'm talking to makeup. Okay, guys, let's get the shot. Director, do you have what you're looking for? Everybody got it. Oh, by the way, did we clear that title that's in the background? We got to make sure that we don't get a cease and desist. Everybody, make sure we got it. Okay, ready to go. Shot. Actors up. Director, make the call. That's normal. Whereas the director's a more linear thinker. Now, that doesn't mean they're not creative, right? But they have to get that shot. They've got to make the list, and they know their list for the day. But that's their singular focus, and it's brilliant. But as a producer, it allowed me to be who I naturally was. And luckily, I had a mom they wanted to put me on Ritalin as a kid too. My mom said, "Hell no, he's going to learn how to deal with it and integrate it into him." So the first time I ever heard the word integrated, right? I was like, "What the hell's integrated? What does that mean, Mom?" And she goes, "You're going to learn to deal with it." And I did, and and golf was a fascinating blend of those two things because in golf, as I'm going to do all of what's my distance, what's my lie, what club am I going to hit, what the wind's doing, what's the water content on the grass, what's the shot I've got to hit. That's all linear thought processing. And as soon as that's done, the switch has to go off in 1.2 seconds. I've got to make every muscle in my body move at 110 miles an hour with this club that's longer than my arm and hit a little ball that's over here and make it go there and land where I want, which ironically is exactly like the game of life. It's the same game, which is why golf continues to fascinate me. And I know that as a Scorpio, and you are, I can tell right away, okay, this tells me why this gentleman is so transformative because he's embraced his passion. I love your book, Finding Your Passion. I would ask you a question, though, because it's fun in psychodynamics, which is psycho meaning mind, dynamics meaning how does our minds work and how do we process language? You've obviously had to learn multiple languages. I did too. At one time, I was fluent in Japanese and I was fluent in German. Now I don't practice it as much. Same thing like not going to the gym. If you don't practice it, it will go the other way. And so we say finding our passion. I always ask people the same thing. I'm like, where'd you find it? And how do you know that you found it?
Well, my passion was going to Canada, and the next passion was to prove to me that I'm just as smart as anybody else, but just to prove to me, I wanted to start with nothing. And I did. And I built my mill. And then when I built my mill, then I built other companies and other companies. The problem that I'm having a lot of times, that the objective as an effective operator and managing as a CEO, I want to make things boringly consistent. Well, that's the objective, but then it becomes a problem for me. Then I will find something else. So what I'm doing now,
I get distracted. We're back to distraction again, right? I wander off.
And so what I'm doing now is podcasting. Now I have to tell you one more thing before we go here. Yes. You're my podcast number 390, where I'm hosting.
Wow.
And podcast number 203 on the Brink podcast is with Dr. Hollowell. Can you believe it? And so
awesome.
That's the book that I bought in 1997. He noted it in 1993. And so when we did our podcast, he suggested to me, I said, so I thought maybe 8% of the population, male and females show it differently than males, ADHD. But the more I got to know about it, I thought it was more than that. So when I podcasted Dr. Halliwell, so I suggested to him maybe 20%. And he said, no, John, more than 25. I agree with him. Podcast number 203. Watch it. For all those people that think about or know something about, watch that podcast. Sure. Then the other part that I said is that I became quite successful, got to know a lot of successful people, entrepreneurs, business persons, and on and on and on. You know what it is. And so I kind of, after watching a lot of these people, I concluded and I suggested to Dr. Hollowell that in the time that I'd been around, that I believe that 50% of the successful is the operative here. Entrepreneurs, business people are ADHD. He said, no, John, 75%. I agree.
I agree. And on top of that, so what? Cool. Be it.
I love it. It's a superpower.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Travis, before you go, can you show us some of your books and give us a website where people can contact you?
Yeah. I would love to share the books, but I'm in the studio and I'm on your show, so I'm growing up with Japanese culture.
Okay, we will find them before we post to just kind of make sure have you got the last one there or?
Yeah, the one you can go to for the current one, you can go to mysticpersonas.com. The Amazon's publishing for us, and they are taking us out. And I don't mean just POD; they're actually doing the full publishing for us. I just got the final book cover this morning, so I know it's ready to pre-order. But also, too, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can watch us actually walking through real life situations where you'll see, hey, this is what we're seeing in the world, going all the way back to the beginning of this show, John, when we talked about what we're doing here in North America as a totality, like the entire continent. Watch the personas, our political figures, so we can see how they're showing up. Now, I'm not suggesting whether they're being truthful or not. That's for you to determine, although there's ways to notice that. Right. But how are they showing up? Because now I can understand what they're trying to say to us and how they're presenting it to us versus exactly what they're saying, but also too, and from CEO to CEO, and I'm in the building materials space as well. I'm a SIP manufacturer, so I'm constantly looking to strive, and we're on the precipice back to ADHD. I got bored and went, yes, I love the consistency of manufacturing, but we're not making the market impact that we should be in a better, faster, greener, stronger world, especially with housing becoming, as we go back to Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. Well, speaking of the United States system specific, we're an 8 million home deficit for just single family homes. And I'm not talking customs. I'm just talking your basic, 322, 1,200 square, vaulted roof.
Yeah.
Why? It's not because we don't have the lack of resources. It's because we're back to where we started. Lack of commitment. And now we're really into mindset. And John, I know you know this from CEO, from you and I are very parallel in our business models, it's not that we don't have the ability. It's mindset is still the number one thing I deal with in today's world we're actually revolutionizing manufacturing, how we've changed how our output is 4 times faster now because I redesigned the line. I got bored. I'm not an engineer. I didn't grow up to be in manufacturing, but I got really excited wait a minute. It's a model to me. It's an architecture. Everything in our world is a blueprint, including us, which obviously I've dedicated my life to. However, we will not allow ourselves to look at a new blueprint once we become comfortable with an old one. That's the persona we get to look at. We get to look at that part of us that says, well, no, that's the way my granddaddy did it this way. My daddy did it this way. Well, I'm going to do it that way. I'm like, well, first of all, that's dumb. And here's why. You're robbing yourself of your contribution to that evolutionary process. Exactly. And all species have it, by the way, the transfer of knowledge and wisdom to the next generation. Exactly. But 2, how much of you, meaning individuals, is still left on the table unrealized? Because just like you said with your bodybuilding, why not? Again, I'll quote back and I'll bring it back to the simplicity and the great Alan Watts, right? If death is inevitable, life becomes a choice. Then the question you get to ask yourself, if you're on this big, beautiful theme park called Planet Earth, and believe me, it's a theme park, and there isn't anything you can't explore on this planet if you choose to, finding your purpose, in my humble opinion, or even finding your passion on top of that is not an external process. It is an unleashing of curiosity. It is not about finding per se, because you'll never truly find the passion. You'll find parts of it. Yeah. You'll understand that passion deployed, committed to, is the finding. That's the journey. So when you get into that space, it really becomes about transferring mindsets. And again, you're a living, we couldn't have written the show any better. And we didn't write it this way. For those who are listening, this was completely improv. John and I are just having a conversation of, oh crap, look at this. But that's what conversations could be. Exactly. And let's be honest. John, at our age, and I say this with the utmost respect, you are my senior, sir. So I humbly respect. And coming from Japan, you're the senior of the men. You're the senpai. I'm the kohai. So I sit back and I go, guys, maybe we listen to this model from the perspective of, here's a man who he didn't not so much prove it to yourself, although I understand the essence of the word. It was, well, let's find out. And the only person that needed to find out was John. No different than Travis did too, right? No difference than when you go into that gym, you're going to find out. And the scary part is the gym will show you your body's weaknesses, not weaknesses in bad, weaknesses, lack of focus. That's it. I have chosen to focus on my pecs and not focus on my traps. Well, then you're going to lean forward a lot, right? Or you're going to have back problems. It is it is not the either or, push or pull days, right? Or complementary. They're all complementary. I hate to break it to you, but all the muscles are in the same body. So let's look at that from a compounded effect and then approach our business that way, like you've done, going, well, why not? What's the worst that can happen? So if everybody listening to this, if you could walk away with one thing, that would be my fantasy to walk away with this. You know this somewhere in your life. The question is, will you be willing to look at it? And that's all. And when you look at it, is the perfect time for you. And that is this. We all end up with the same. Our journey will come to an end, whether we like it or not. And I don't like it any more than you. Believe me, I have come up with every way possible to figure out. I'm like, come on, Elon Musk, figure out how to give me, some way to store my brain in a computer so I go on for forever. Immortality is the weakness of all humans going back in time. But if we know that to be true, and let's be honest, death is the only thing that is 100% batting average in the known universe. Even God doesn't stop death. Exactly. So let's look at that. If that's true, then, and we know that's our end result. Even the great Steve Jobs, doesn't matter how much money he had, didn't buy him another day. So we get in the concept of, hey, not just why not, it's would I be willing to? It's not a why not, because why will always give you some because answer justifications of BS of why you're not going to. Your personas will all show up to be a board meeting in your head of all the reasons why you shouldn't do something, as opposed to, well, if you already know the end result is we're all going to leave the planet. The question is, did you live while you're on the planet and fully express and explore you? That's what makes the personas, in my opinion, the ultimate journey, because I get to go, wow, I see that part of my shadow, or I see the oracle part of me, and I'm choosing to ignore it. What part of me is choosing to ignore it? And if we ultimately look at it, everything becomes this beautiful spiritual journey. And it is not about finding who you are and discovering who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, in my humble opinion, I say this with the utmost of respect, it is about remembering who you always have been before you forgot and got hypnotized into believe somebody else's story. Whatever that story was, there's no judgment or blame. It's just a fact. And that could be mother, father, it could be church, it could be culture. You know, you and I are both multicultural. So you and I are a perfect example that culture is not a singular exclusive thing.
No.
It's an influential thing, but it's not a singular exclusive thing. In fact, I will tell you, culture is the number one teacher.
Yeah.
Go be around them. I've learned more from other people.
Travis, it was an amazing podcast. A privilege. Let's make sure we stay in touch. I'm going to send you the books. I'm going to sign them for you and then send them to you. And for all those people watching us, and this is, again, a primary example of, and Travis related to it, this, we didn't have any discussion other than I saw part of a bio from that told me part of the story, but not even close to what we interacted here on this podcast. And podcasting is the new media in my world, and it will go far beyond where the traditional newscasts are and all the other things. Media, podcasting is only at the beginning. And for all those people watching us from around the world, if you like what we are doing, you want to see more of it, buy the books from Travis, buy my books. They are on all the major media. They are audio as well. And so subscribe to the podcast, share it with others, like it, and make comments. Travis, let's make sure we stay in touch.
I would be honored, sir.
It was a privilege. Thanks, Travis.
It was my privilege. Thank you. Thanks for sharing you.
Thank you.